and his title is Turning Circularity into Practice. Circular economy, yeah, where we're talking about recycling, reuse, yeah, repurpose, turning circularity into practice, lessons from SMEP. SMEP is Sustainable Manufacturing and Environmental Program. Yes, program in Africa and South Asia. Okay, Science India. Bangladesh, Nepal, yeah. So, yes, so sustainable manufacturing will be the focus, right? So that is also the other session that I would want you to attend. And these two will be considered as classes. I will ask questions from this in your examination. The midterm exam, the upcoming midterm examination, I will ask you questions. So please pay attention and try to link with what I have already taught you on the fundamentals of climate change, right? And of course, you are then most welcome to attend the panel discussion after that, yeah, because that is also focusing on zero waste circular economy approaches in material transition. Okay, so with that, I will give this mic to Dr. Svetlana, and we are still waiting for our keynote speaker to come. Development Goal. We have with us international renowned waste management expert, MEP's Professor Dr. Saeed Hassan, who has authored award-winning textbook like Introduction to Waste Management, a textbook, January 2022, and Geology Hazardous Waste Management, Prentice Hall, 1996. A 2 times recipient of U.S. Department of State Senior Fulbright Award, Professor Hassan has also received awards like Outstanding Alumnus Award from Turkey University and the Educators Environmental Excellence Award from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. With a 35 years teaching career, he developed and taught 4 waste management courses, supervised 16 graduate students, published around 50 papers, and presented research globally. Professor Hassan is a senior fellow of Geological Society of America and member of prestigious organization, residing in the Kansas City metropolitan area. We welcome you, sir, for the session. Thank you.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be with you here in this lovely campus. It was beyond my expectation to see all the green space here, and I was especially impressed when I talked with your esteemed Vice Chancellor that there's always a shortage of water supply here, but despite that, You are maintaining an excellent green space here, so congratulations, keep it up. Well, I would like to thank Dr. Pete Zinan and the organizers of this conference for giving me the opportunity to travel from the United States all the way here. It is a long trip, but I'm glad I'm here with you to share my knowledge and expertise. And I know we are a little late in starting, but let's get going right away. So, okay, here it is. Is there some way for me to see what is happening there without turning so I don't lose the voice here? Or will it work? So, anyway, that will be set up. There are a few things about my presentation that I would like to outline for you guys in general. Basically, before coming here, I was planning to spend little time on SDGs, but after hearing the presentation yesterday by Dr. Shahid Khan and other people who followed, and also from the interaction from the audience, I quickly realized that we are very current and up with SDGs. So I will skip that part, I'll just touch upon it very quickly. But then after that, I will get into my pet area, which is the waste and waste management issues. And then I will come back again to relate waste management in how it can help attain the SDGs. What is its contribution in attaining the goals of the sustainable development? And finally, I would like also to introduce a concept that has not gone around too much, and it's a little away from my field of waste management, but because I visited that facility, a campus actually, which is in my home state of Kansas, and let me come back to that, but this is about what we call agro-ecosystem. So it's agriculture, related to agricultural production, and the main emphasis is how we can create the grains which are perennial, number one, and mimic the nature. Yeah, and we'll come to that later. So I think that was a very important discovery, I would say, that has been made. A lot of field testing has been done, and I think it is ready to be launched. In fact, some countries, some companies in the United States are adopting it in manufacturing their products like cereal and stuff like that, making other products. So there is a lot of promise, and so we'll come to that later. So that is in a general way the way I'm going to handle my talk. And of course I would like to request one of the persons to keep track of the time, because I have a tendency to oh, okay, all right, thank you. Oh, okay, well, that's so kind of you, thank you, that's wonderful. So let's advance the next slide, please. Now, of course, we are familiar with that. Yesterday there was a lot of talk about the disparity between the living standard, east and west, and north and south. Either way you go, you find that people poverty is much more prevalent in southern, south of the equator, or if you go east-west, then also you have the same picture. So we'll move forward then, next slide. So in my opinion, and I spent all my career, 35 plus years, in waste management business, I will start with this question. So if all of us take a moment to think about it, what is the ultimate cause of environmental degradation? I'm sure you are all hearing it for a long time. Environment has been degraded, air quality has gone bad, soil has been polluted, water system has been contaminated, and so on. And collectively, that's all what is environmental degradation is about. So what is exactly the cause for that? It's very, in a way, simple question, but in my opinion, it's a very profound question also. So what I want to do is to start off with this question, and then we'll see what I think, and I will submit my views to you, and then you can take it or not take it. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, a few words again, I don't have to go in detail here. Sustainability, because SDG, sustainability word is there. So there was, I felt there will be a good opportunity to give you a little historical background. I always like to relate things, what was happening in the past. So the word sustainable was first used in the 16th century, 17th century, as you can see. And it was, of course, variable. But then later on, in 1845, 200 years later, the lawyers, attorneys started to use it as an argument whether it is defensible or not. 72, of course, it was used for to relate any process or action that if anything can continue for a period of time, like agricultural sustainability. So then in 1987, of course, coming to the modern time and our environmental things, the famous Bertland report defined economic development, and you can read it, development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And this is such a profound statement. I mean, up until recent time, the thinking was, well, if I have all the things that I need and I have a comfortable life, and then after I'm gone, who cares for the coming generation? Of course, that was a very wrong thinking. And we are over with that. Now we are thinking about future generations. 7 generations or 5 generations from as they call in America, they have got a very unique philosophy about these things. Whenever they try to modify the land in any way, they think about its impact for 7 generations. Look at the wisdom there. And I'm sure that kind of things are prevailing in the local culture in India and many other countries, because nature was like a mother to them. And they couldn't live without her and taking care of her and so on. Unfortunately, the technology and Western thoughts have changed many things, capitalism especially. So let's move on to the next one, please. I wrote a paper with my students, and when we thought that we need to define environmental sustainability, because economic sustainability or development is one thing, but environmental sustainability has to be a little differently defined. Because as you know, when you talk about growth and development and economics, what is the main measure? GDP, right? But does GDP tell you about how people are doing, their well-being? And also one of the greatest flaws with GDP is that the wealth is not distributed, or the income is not distributed equally who contributed the time and labor and money to generate the income. As was said yesterday, and I know in the United States, 1% of the population controls 99% of the wealth of the nation. Is it justified? Not at all. And if you go back to the SDGs motive and the preamble and everything that started it, it is to alleviate poverty and bring equity and justice. But this is not equitable when a certain percentage of people, and that to very minute percentage, is controlling majority of the wealth of the nation. Same as in India, not same percentage, but 1/3 of the population lives below poverty level. And 1/3 of the people, and some of them are making the list of the Forbes most wealthy person in the world. There's so much disparity. And that is something that young people like you have to think in mind. That needs to be removed. So that is not right. So there is a need for another definition which you can read it. So let's go on to the next one. I will skip through these slides quickly, then type it again. Same thing, we are familiar with that, so I don't want to spend any time. Next one. Okay, here's another interesting note that I would like to expand upon. Now, if you look at our modern time, we talk about pollution and all kind of issues that we have to deal with. But nature works in its own way. And long time ago, they say that agriculture started 8,000 or 10,000 years ago. So if you go back in time, maybe 1 million years ago, population was small, lifestyle was simple, there was no chemical like we have here, everything was natural, and whatever little waste was generated, it was thrown out, and it was biodegradable. So nature took care of herself. there are microbes and bacteria in soil and water and also some in the air which are actually degrading the waste. But what happens is that when you put a larger volume of the same waste, then of course you are overtaxing the ability of those bacteria to cleanse the waste or the harmful component. Or in other situation, you may have a small amount of waste, but it is loaded with toxic material, so that kills them. They cannot do anything. That is where we are. Industrial revolution, that was the beginning of the environmental problem when we started to use coal like crazy, and then came petroleum, hydrocarbons, and we have climate change and carbon dioxide problem and everything on our hand now to deal with. And then also the pace of industrialization that we have witnessed after the Second World War has been unprecedented in human history. If you look at past history and past civilization, yes, the later civilization was always had some improvement over the previous civilization, and that's the way it goes. You learn from what happened in the past, and then you develop something new, and so you get up and up and up. That is the human nature. But and so there is a slow rate. It takes time, several generations, when some significant change will occur. But here in our generation, or maybe you are part of that, I think a little later, in the last 50 to 70 years, the pace of change has been crazy. It's quantum speed, really. Every day something new is happening, and we are hearing about new materials that are being thrown into the environment, becoming a part of the waste stream. And it's a continuous process of stopping and thinking how to manage it. And I'll get into that a little later. As you see here, 84,000 chemicals are being used. The number has been revised. The last number that the American Chemical Society had compiled about 10 years ago was 30,000. And now in about 20 years' time, it's 84,000. This was a very solid research done by a group of Chinese researchers, and they came up with this number. It's all from published sources. So again, the result, as you can see, that biodiversity, we are struggling with preserving whatever is left, resource depletion, and of course, downgrading of the environment. So let's move on here. Next one, please. I don't know. Okay, it's shifting also. Pardon me for the little problem with the title words, they're shifting, but anyway. So as we see here, one simple thing that I would like to put out for you is that think of a bank account. If you have some money, many of you came to college and suppose your parents opened a saving account for you, and they put some money in there for one semester or 1 year, they put some money and they say that at this rate of expense, your money will last throughout the year or throughout the semester. And if you became careless, you spend more money than you were supposed to, then you are overdraft, right? You're depleting the resource that was made available to you. And similarly, if you look at the earth, it is the one that the bio resource of the earth. It is the one that is providing all the food and everything else, water supply, and so on and so forth. And of course air and all that kind of thing. So we are heavily dependent on the earth and the resource. And the way things have changed over the years, last 40, 50 years, is that we are taxing the bio capacity of the earth. It cannot produce enough mineral extraction, energy resources, food products, everything that we all need to sustain our life. But we passed that point. Initially, population was less, the chemicals and the environmental degradation was not as rampant as it has been for the last 40, 50 years. So Earth was able to sustain us. But the population also is growing exponentially, as you know, growing very exponentially, and then all kind of dangerous chemicals are being used in day-to-day life. You will be surprised to know that if you have your analysis of your lung tissue, there will be some microplastics and nanoplastic in your lung, in addition to many of the chemicals. So that is where we are. So when the capacity of the available resource and how much you extract or use is the equation is out of balance, then we call overshoot. That means you overshot the resource. So let's go to the next one. I have just a few graphs here. Oh yeah. And of course, that also depends on the country, how much resource they need. America is one of the worst because they use a lot of resources. They are a third society, unfortunately. I'm coming from that country, but that's a reality. We have to be candid about it. So if that is so, America will need 5 Earths to meet the need that it has now, it needs, because there's not enough. India fortunately is all right, 0.7, and this is I think 2020 data. I think it might have changed a little bit. I'm giving you the reference, or 2019 actually. So it's a little older, but it still gives you the picture that various countries where they stand in terms of consumption and the available resources that are there. Next slide, please. And again, this is a very nice way to put it here. You can see that on the horizontal axis we have got about 70 years of time scale, decadal time, and then the number of planets, like how many Earths, assuming that it's all same condition. As you see here, up until 1970 we were all right, but this is when the resource extracted met our need, but then after that it had to go up. So that is what has happened. Now, the interesting thing is that if we continue to do business as usual, that means we don't care for what is happening. If we don't take measures to cut down carbon dioxide emission and stuff like that, then that is where we'll end up with the red curve. But if we really do a good job following the Paris Agreement and many other things, chances are that we can bend the curve shown by the green line. Again, that takes a lot of unified thinking among nations of the world, politics and so on comes into play. Next one, please. And this is a very interesting chart, same concept. What you see here is that every year, the day when every year when the humans are overshooting the resource is getting behind by 1 month almost. So this year, at that time when the resource extraction was more than available resources, suppose that happened in August in certain year, next year it was in July and so on. And interesting thing to note here is that 2020, it went backward. And you know the reason, COVID came. Worldwide travel was cut out, and many things happened. So there was lower emission of carbon dioxide and any other thing. So we gained a little bit time, but we are back to the same thing. So this is Earth's overshoot. It's a very nice way to visualize what is happening. Next slide, please. Now I'm coming to the waste. This is what happens. You know, waste is something that if everything goes, it's like our health. If you're staying healthy, no, we don't care. But if something goes wrong, then we start to pay attention to it and go to doctor and take care of the problem. Same thing waste. If the waste is managed all right, nobody cares. But if for some reason, political reason, strike or whatever, it gets piled up, and then we have a situation like this, then everybody gets concerned. Another trick, same thing. And this is open dump as we call it. You know, the waste are there everywhere. And it's very common in developing countries, Africa, South Asia, India included, of course, unfortunately. But that's what is happening, you know. And this is one of the worst way to manage the waste. I was glad to hear there was somebody from a government department in Odisha, and I was impressed the way they are managing the waste and everything else here. So congratulations to the folks who are part of the state government of Odisha. They are doing a really good job of trying to manage the waste in as possible nice way as it is feasible. Next one, please. Next slide. This is a slide that I prepared, and I think yesterday Dr. Atik had a similar slide that how the process goes from extraction, which is the first step in trying to get the material that we want to use, and then refining and processing and turning it into useful products. But the thing to note here is that every step of the way, right from extraction, you are generating waste. When you are turning them into fuel, minerals, you are turning them into fuel or gasoline or whatever, every step of the way they're waste. And finally, when the product that was made out of that has been used, then of course you discard it. So that is the cycle of the waste. and ultimately everything goes back to the big receptacle, the earth. And that has to stop. We cannot just do it like the way we have been doing it. We have to manage it in the proper way so that the water quality, the soil, the air is not degraded. Okay, next one please. So coming back to the waste, there are 6 main types. I have left some other ones that are emerging almost every day. It was not on the list, but they are coming up. So as I said, it's a challenging situation. We have to deal with them in the right way. So you can read it. I just want to skip it quickly. Go ahead. Next slide, please. And some other information. Yesterday again, one of the presenters mentioned that 1/3 of the municipal solid waste ends up in open dumps, meaning that it is not put in a landfill, but is properly engineered. You have protective layers, leachate collection system, leachate management system, gas collection system, and so on, and multiple barriers and all that in the bottom. So that is the open dump kind of thing. Hazardous waste in the Western world, we have learned enough at a great expense of time and money how to manage the waste in the right way. So fortunately, the expertise is available, and that's one of the last SDGs, that global knowledge transfer, 17. I think developing countries need to capitalize on the available information, resources, knowledge, technology, and they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Healthcare waste, many developing countries are doing a good job, but still challenge is that they are mixing it with the solid waste, and that should not happen. Electronic waste is a huge challenge because, as you know, mobile phone devices like that, personal devices are getting very popular, and almost everybody has it, regardless of the status of the person or the economic status. And that is becoming a big issue in when it is discarded, and how to manage it properly. In fact, in India, in Delhi, Hyderabad, Bengaluru, Kolkata, there are a lot of informal electronic waste recycling facilities, and I don't know if you had any chance to know or visit it. It is a very primitive way of recycling the waste, electronic waste. It's a purely serious health hazard. China has been, I shouldn't say leader, but China has been doing it for a long time. And the result in the southeastern part, Gyeongju province, one of the things close to the China Sea. There are some international operators who collect the waste from places where they are generated, ship it, take it across, and they have got a local contractor, and all the waste ends up in the village. And mind it, countries like China, and I think Bangladesh also may be there, I'm not sure, they have environmental laws in the book. And legally, it is, according to the law, it is illegal just to get the waste like that, because they're all hazardous and toxic waste. The majority of the world nations are signatory to the Basel Convention, which is basically does not allow hazardous waste to be shipped across. There are some few restrictions, but in general, it is not allowed. It's illegal. If country A puts the waste in a ship, and the ship takes it and unloads it at some other place, and both parties may be in agreement, but it's illegal. So that is a very critical situation about the electronic waste, and the quantity, of course, on the increase all the time. Next slide, please. Nuclear waste, I don't think we have to worry about much in the United States and in India. Thank you. We have got 19 operating reactors, which are producing about 3% of the energy need. New ones are coming online, but one thing that it's bothersome as far as I can see, is that I couldn't find any plan for managing the waste, nuclear waste. After all, it's just like a fuel, right? Nuclear uranium and all the stuff that goes into the core of the reactor, it is a kind of fuel, just like coal. You burn the coal, you use the heat, and you convert the heat to steam and run it through a turbine and produce electricity. Here, instead of burning coal, you are allowing the radioactive material to go through the process of fission, and that generates a lot of heat. You capture the heat, boil the water, pressurize it, run the turbine, generator, and there you are. But like coal, when you burn it, ashes are there, which is useless, you have to remove it. Same thing here. Spent fuel rods or spent nuclear fuel has to be replaced, depending upon the rating of the power plant, maybe every 3 to 10 years, how big is the power plant, you have to replace it. And so, where does that go? How you are managing that? Because it's still very hard. There are a lot of radioisotopes there in the nuclear waste material, waste nuclear fuels that are very, very highly radioactive. They're emitting all kind of radiation, a definite health hazard, and that has to be managed properly. So there are about 39 countries now that are using nuclear energy for various purposes, power generation, healthcare, medicinal, and so on and so forth. But America, of course, has started it all, as you all know. First discovery of the fusion process was for destructive, or use was for destructive purpose in 1945, when the technology was developed to capture the heat. We made bomb, and of course that was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, and as you know that killed about 70,000 people instantly. But after that, people said, well, that's not the way to go. We have to find what we call peaceful use of nuclear energy, and that's when the power plant and agriculture application, medical, of course, for diagnosis and treatment of disease and so on and so forth, we started. But then again, all along the way, we were not thinking about what to do with the waste, radioactive waste. In fact, America didn't pay any attention for a long time. And when they really got serious about it in the 70s, America built the first nuclear power plant in the public sector in 1954 in Pennsylvania. And nothing happened for 50s, 60s, nobody was caring. Although the waste nuclear fuel rods were getting piled up. So in the 70s, they felt the need that something has to be done. So we started looking into what is the best way to take care of the waste, nuclear waste. And it took time, and finally in the late 80s we said, okay, looks like Yucca Mountain in the state of Nevada, which is mainly desert and not too many people live there. There are only two major population centers, Las Vegas and Reno, and most of the places are deserts. So we said, okay, let's do it there. And we spent $13.5 billion over a period of 20 years, 2 decades, and $13.5 billion to characterize the site, thorough investigation. You can't imagine the amount of work that was done there. I have been there several times. I used to take on students, and we have seen everything. But then at the end of all that, and of course it was checked, rechecked and all that, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has had oversight. They looked at the report. They say, yeah, everything is fine. It is recommended that the first disposal facility should be located at Yucca Mountain. But then politics has its own way, and when the Obama administration came, they just defunded the whole project. So that's where we are. Despite 60, 70 years of using the nuclear energy, we don't have a safe place to get rid of it. On the other hand, Finland, a small country in Europe, they started to use the nuclear energy for their power need in 1974. They built the first nuclear reactor in 1974. And now I think last year they built the fourth one. And but on the day one, when they decided to go nuclear for power, meeting the power need, they also made a law that we have to think of getting rid of the waste in the right way. So that was in their mind, right there. And this is another example of experience and learning from other countries. They knew that America didn't pay any attention for it to 20 years, and now they're struggling. So they were aware of that, conscious of it, and so they said, well, okay, we are going to move forward with the nuclear power development, but also in parallel, we have to find a way to get rid of it. And lo and behold, Finland, a tiny country with limited resources, not as much as America has, they have done the job, and now they have located a site which is 500 meters below the level of the sea, Black Sea there, like North Sea, and they've gone underground inside granitic rock, very old rock. Many of those kind of rocks are around here in India also.
and through a network of shaft and openings and all that, excavated through the rock, they are going to place all the waste there. This is designed to take care of the waste for about 100 years. And then, so we are going to be the first country in the world. Now the whole project is going through the final stage of testing and re-evaluation, check and double check and so on. And then next year, 2025, all the waste that they have there in the country will be finally in place. And now they are the world leader now. Okay, let's move on. Oh, okay. Can I go back quickly to the last one, please? I was saying that new waste are coming in the stream all the time. I'm sorry about the acronym there. Last one, PPCP, that is the acronym for pharmaceuticals and personal care products. Any personal care product, shampoo and lotions and stuff like that, that is all part of the personal care product. Pharmaceutical, of course, prescription and non-prescription drugs. What happens if you think of it? You take a shower, you have shampoo or whatever you did, lotions and all, well, it gets washed down in the water, and where it ends up? Ultimately, in the water bodies. It gets untrapped, it's not removed by the sewage treatment plant, and of course, in countries like India, all municipality doesn't have functioning and adequate capacity of sewage treatment plant to remove everything, and even if they have it, many of the constituents of the drug are not removed, they just pass through. And then that affects the aquatic life. Our knowledge about how it affects the ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, and then on to the humans is still in the state of infancy. We have not understood the whole process here. So that's a wide open area for research. And then again, you might have heard about PFASs, that ubiquitous chemical is a family of chemicals which is used so extensively in day-to-day business. When you buy your sandwich from a store, carry out, it is wrapped in a kind of waxy paper. It has got a trace of that PFAS. It's very harmful material, carcinogenic. It has been proved that. So all these things are coming new, and it has to be dealt with. Next one, please. Again, there are a lot of information here. I don't think we can talk about it in the short time we have. So we'll quickly go through the slide and I think one of the students yesterday, he had a poster and I encouraged him to go more into it. And he was talking about electronic waste and what are the harmful constituents. And of course, this is a long list and what are the health outcomes. Can you move on, please? Next one. Organic, inorganic compounds, heavy metals. Next one. As they call it, volatile organic compound, hazardous compound, biomedical, electronic waste. Okay, they're all dangerous material to say the least. You cannot let them go anywhere and everywhere. Okay, next one. Now here is another thing that is very pertinent to this kind of forum. We know that global south, and we're trying to do everything to make sure that there is alleviation of poverty, improved standard of living, and so on and so forth in people who are in the south, basically. And if you look at the urbanization trend, of course, urbanization is a global phenomenon. It is happening all over. But it is more in the developing countries than in the developed countries. That means more and more people in these developing countries, they are congregating to cities and towns for whatever reason, good jobs, maybe living, you name it. But then think of the impact, because all the urban areas have got limited boundary. And if you're packing too many people, naturally there are a lot of issues. Waste is one issue, and so on and so forth. So that is the trend you see, the 1950 is purple and 2020 is green. You see that all over, from anywhere from about 50, on an average about 50% increase. Okay, next one. And what is the impact, what is the consequence of that? Well, they will use more resource, more waste will be generated, and if it is not managed in the right way, then we have got the same problem. This again should be very familiar to you all, but I want to just talk about a little bit about 12, responsible consumption and production. That is where the waste is linked in the SDGs. Next one, please. Target and indicator, I expect that we are all familiar with that. targets are some goals or achievable measures that, okay, we have to come this far, then we know how we are doing. And in the indicators are some unit of measuring, so that the data can be harmonized coming from different countries, and you have got a standard way of relating data from about 193 countries which are around there. And there are details about various targets in the SDG 12, which relates to the waste management. We'll move on to the next one here, please. So they have put a benchmark, a timeline. By 2020, we should have this much. By 2030, which is the end of the whole thing, we should be here. And we can measure the national, and how we can assess whether we have achieved that. For example, 12.5, substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. That is the goal of the target. And how you measure it? Well, what is the quantity? How much is being recycled? What is the total volume of the waste per year or per month? So that is a good way to characterize the quantity, and if everybody does the same way, then it becomes easy for the statistical analysis globally. Because a big challenge for United Nations, and especially the United Nations Environmental Program, the UNEP, has been to harmonize the data over the wide variety of reporting systems that various countries use. So hopefully this will alleviate the problem. Next one, please. Again, many things, if policies are there, then that is a good indicator as well. All right, next one. This is just one example of how you can calculate the domestic material consumption. It's very simple. When people talk about waste management and think to innovate to clean up with the contaminated soil or water, I say all you need is just basic knowledge of physics and chemistry, more of chemistry than physics, and then use your imagination and things like that. And simple math and algebra, and you can, if you have the creativity, motivation, you can look at what is available local material, and you can find some way to develop a new technology. It's as simple as that. Okay, so next one, please. This is a kind of infographic that UN has developed again for the same thing, how you can do. These are some of the very useful tools that are available to take to the public, put it in the school classrooms, supermarkets and everywhere, so that people will become aware. These can be downloaded, they could be made into big posters and so on. One of the things that I always believe is that all these programs, whatever we have discussed so far and what we are going to discuss later, are not going to bring the result that we intend unless the public participation is there. And that is where you need to have the expertise from social scientists, behavioral scientists, psychologists, economists, accounting, business management people and so on, in addition to, of course, the traditional group of scientists and engineers and so on. Again, for a long time there was a kind of a separation between the two groups, humanities and sciences. But now, thank God, we have come to realize that we cannot do the job completely without having everybody involved into it. So, regardless of whether your field is management or you are in the technology sector or you are going to be an expert in chemistry, everybody, or IT for example, everybody has got some input into the big picture here of SDGs success, waste management, and everything else. Next one, please. Part of this slide you saw Dr. Shahid had a different one, but this again tells you that how many sectors in our society are affected by proper waste management or lack of proper waste management. So this is the impact on the sectors. Consumer goods, proper waste management, almost 50% of that can be managed properly by proper waste management. Chemicals and so on, education sector, 28, water, so on and so forth. So not relevant only to 5%. Now that diagram again is a reference to the SDGs. Area of impact, waste reduction, greenhouse gas emission, material use, energy use, all of that, almost gender equity and so on. So waste management, proper and safe waste management is very pervasive. It covers almost the entire spectrum, almost the 17 sectors of the SDGs. For 5 of them it has got direct bearing, and for the other 12 it has got indirect bearing. That's why you've got different percentages, but it is relevant to all 17 SDGs. So, okay, let's go ahead, please. This is the slide that Dr. Hain had yesterday. As you see that, we are on the midpoint of the whole SDGs thing. We are, unfortunately, have not been very successful. As you can see, only 15% of the SDGs we have been successful with, but there are many areas where we have not made much difference. And in fact, there are certain areas, about 35%, where we are getting behind or backward, the red area. And the gray one tells you that there is no data. And that is a huge challenge, I see. When you are looking at global picture, lack of data and or reliable data is the biggest challenge that the analysts always face. Despite that, they are trying to make headway. For example, the food waste. It has become a big thing now. But up until maybe 3 years ago, the first report came just about 2020 by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, a very comprehensive report. Before that, we knew that food was being wasted, but we didn't know how much and where. 900 million people globally go to bed hungry. We knew that number. But in what country it is more, what country it is less. And that's not because there was no uniformity of the data. It took a long time for them to massage all the data which is scattered all over before they could put out the report. So that is the situation we are in. Only about 15% have met the target, but we are behind. Again, this is something we have to think about. Next one. Now I'm coming to that, and I'll conclude. I started with a question in the beginning. Don't think that I've forgotten that. I'll come to that. What is the main cause of environmental degradation? That was the question that I put out. But here, let me spend a little time. How do you deal with time? I don't have the clock. Watch. Okay, 5 minutes. Yeah. So this is a state right in the middle of the country. That's where I come from. Kansas City is right here. Half the city is on the Missouri side, half the city is on the Kansas side. The border crosses the metro area here. But anyway, that's a little geography. About 300 kilometers west from that is a land institute. And the person who started it in the 70s, Wes Jackson, W-E-S-J-A-C-K-S, and he was a geneticist teaching at Stanford University, but he thought, well, he has to do something more than teaching. So he moved here in Salina, in a small town. They had established a center there, and basically through a long process of genetic studies and plant manipulation and transplant and so on and so forth, they have been able to produce a seed which is called Crenza, just a name, but the whole idea is based upon, they say that the modern system of agriculture is not sustainable. Why? Because we use a lot of chemicals, fertilizers, a lot of huge amount of water is used, and then the third thing is that, and the pesticides and herbicides. I mean, industrial flourishing in these sectors, pesticides and chemical fertilizers, but all of them are really bad for the environment. In fact, some of the constituents of pesticides and other things are deadly, highly toxic. And you know that in the wheat belt in India, Haryana and all those places, there is an area there, because as Punjab and Haryana is the biggest producer, they are the breadbasket of India in a way. They use huge amount of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. The common syndrome, what they call blue baby, because then there is excess of nitrogen in the soil or water, and the mother drinks that kind of thing, so it goes through the baby in the womb, and the baby are born with what they call blue baby. They have got lack of oxygen and all that kind of thing. It's blue baby syndrome. And then importantly, there is a huge increase in the number of cancer cases in that area from Bhatinda all the way south. So much so that the state government has started a service, and the train is called Cancer Express. Would you believe that? So those are some of the price that people are paying for using the chemicals and fertilizers. The Green Revolution, which was supposed to be a miracle, I have a different opinion about that. Really, it is not. Anyway, so what that means that say, well, forget about that, we have to mimic the nature, how nature takes care of the weeds and pests and all that. And they find that, well, if you have a multicultural system of agriculture, instead of growing one crop, like wheat or rice or whatever, single crop, then you don't have the hidden potential of the other crops, which are always growing, like what we call wheat, and they do a good function. They can take care of many of the pests. So this was nature's way of doing it. But now we are using chemicals or pesticides, herbicides to get rid of them. So they said, no, that's not the right way. So what they have done is that they have perfected some seed, wheat, and also rice, and many other things are also in work, barley and so on. And we have a project at Yunnan University in China, where they are experimenting with the rice fields. But I'll tell you show you a picture about this Krenza plant, how it is useful. Next slide, please. See, if you look at the picture of a root of the ordinary wheat, winter wheat, it goes about 3 feet or 1 meter. But this one has got a very deep root system. This is the wheat variety, part of that Krenza, as they have named it, and that has got deep root about over 10 feet. And what is the implication of that? First of all, if you've got an extensive root system, then it can sequester more carbon dioxide from the air. So there is a direct impact on the climate issue. The second thing is that because of the deep root, it provides a greater binding to the loose soil particles. So the soil erosion is reduced. And there are so many other things. And look at the nutritious value of that. Way more than ordinary wheat. As I said in the beginning, many industries in America, they have started their own grain crops and all that. It's experimental, but the biggest challenge that these group of people are facing, and I met a young woman there, Sneha, I think, she had a poster there yesterday, and she was saying that they have done a lot of work with the local community to market the products that they're making, but the biggest challenge they are facing, or she was relating to me, is that we don't know how to bring it out of their production, wherever they bring it, and bring it to the market. So that same problem they are facing there. It's a matter of acceptability. Whenever there's a new thing, people are hesitant. They don't know that, so they're reluctant to use it. So they are in the same boat. So don't feel that you are the only one. Okay, next one. I think this may be the last slide. Okay, these you have seen again, but the second point that I have here, mismanagement of societal waste, is the main cause. This is my answer to the question that I posed. What is the cause? Mismanagement. That means you have not managed the waste in the way it should be done. And technology is there. Whether the waste is in the liquid form coming out of the factory, or it is the emission in the gas form going up through the chimney in the air, or it is a solid waste that is coming out of the pipeline as a byproduct of manufacture. Each and every one of them can be properly managed if you collect it right at the source and neutralize it, and then you are done. It will add to the cost certainly, but think of the benefit you will draw. Because if you leave it around, billions of dollars have been spent in Europe and America to clean up the contaminated sites. It's still the process is not over yet. But if you trap everything right at the beginning, at a little smaller cost, in the long run, you are the winner. Public health is not impaired, environmental quality is protected, and so on. All right, next one. That is SDG 17, knowledge transfer. And that is the Krenza thing that I was talking about. I think that's the last one. Is there any more? Well, thank you for your attention. I know I covered a lot of ground, but I hope you're engaged in that. Thank you.
Since we have students here, can we have one or two questions if you are curious to know about something?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, one or two questions. Anybody? Quick questions, anybody?
Nobody.
Don't be shy, come on. No question is done, that is to say.
And then you didn't understand? Yes. Oh, okay. Dr. Supriya? Okay, no, let's have a moment. Yes? You need the mic? Here.
Good morning, sir. I want to ask that should the environmental change or climate change should be a part of political agenda so that there would be a great change in the future in a positive manner.
Any other question? And we'll take 2 or 3 questions. Any other? Any from the students? That means you didn't understand, but I'm going to ask you questions in the examination. Yes.
I think mine goes on very nicely from her question. I was actually, there's a business imperative. You know, some time back there was a book which came out, it became a big mantra in India.
Speak into the mic.
There was a book which came out which became a big mantra in India, which was called Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was that if you're using these products, then you have them in small sachets, then you reach out to the large numbers of people. So there's a business imperative in that. So, and it's also trying to say that, okay, products are available to even the people out there, you know, who can't afford it otherwise. So, I mean, just drawing from her question, when she was asking is the political agenda, I think there is also a business agenda, which I somehow doesn't, it just doesn't get, I know that we talk in the academics so much about SDGs and all that, but it doesn't seem to reflect in other forums. And I think that's very important. So,
Yeah, that's a good thought. Yes, Satyasis? Dr. Satyasis, yes, please.
So thank you. So I'm Dr. Satyasis. So at least this is a small question I want to ask regarding any technology can you suggest for this electronics waste and waste management?
Speak into the mic, please. Yeah.
Yeah, electronic technology used, the new technology, cutting-edge technology used for electronic waste and waste management. Waste management.
You had a question?
Yeah, Andrej, you can ask a question because we're just taking a few questions so that we can consolidate. Yeah.
Can you take like 2 questions? Is it okay?
I think fast.
Okay. So, are you using wrong indicator when you talk about SDGs and especially goal 70? For example, when you talk about sustainable consumption and production, mainly reduce consumptions around the world and maximize efficiency, whatever the product that you are talking about. And you are using GDP as part of KPI, like how we, measures development well-being, and it shows that most of the developing countries actually well-being actually reducing because of the stress and all those things. So this is kind of really conflicting. When one hand we say we need GDP, that means like, and to grow GDP, you need to consume more, and you are saying no, you need sustainable consumptions. So how to address
Age-old question. Age-old
Yes,
question.
and I'll address that.
Yes, Andrej.
Thank you, Professor Hassan. My question is more of a doubt that were bugging my mind. But waste is often mixed, right? As you showed, that different types of waste often bundled together in municipalities as municipal solid waste, unfortunately not fully separated. And most of, at least half the share of the weight of the waste in developing countries such as India or my native Brazil is organic waste. It's a wet part of what they call a waste. Fine. And this came from an agricultural field or husbandry or some type of animal somewhere. Okay. We are fertilizing fields to produce agriculture. So we are adding artificial materials to soils so that they produce more. This produce is collected sent to cities, and then we use it. We have unused shares of it, up to 30%, as you well put, and a lot of it goes to waste as organic waste. And this organic waste is not reverted back to the fields where it came from. A lot of it is not transformed into compost or fertilizer again, but instead is landfill. Is this, let's say, linear or non-circular pattern between the agricultural field to the landfill a problematic thing, given that that implies a reliance on a continuous artificial fertilization of fields and a continuous burning of potentially valuable organic material? What could be the consequences in the long run of that? Thank you.
Okay, all right. Now, we can start off with the first question, make it very quick and easy. Your question about political agenda, definitely it has to be there. Sad thing is that it is there on most countries' agenda, but the implementation is not there. How well it should be implemented, that is where it's lacking. And for that, I use the word the country, if it has got a political will, that is the leadership is really committed to it, and leadership at every level, right from your president, prime minister, and down to the chancellor, in the campus, or the CEO of business. What they call it, if they had a buy-in, yes, the idea is good and I will support it, and provide funding and resource. If that is not there, no matter what we do, it's not going to succeed. And that again is one of the number one challenges we face when we are talking about SDGs and global environment and so on. Now, the other question was, your question, you were asking about SDG 12 and 17, I think, yeah. Let me refresh your question quickly.
GDP is like.
Oh yeah, right, I got it. GDP is one of the worst things that we have done to ourselves. The economists have been very clever, they created it, but it is a very abstract thing, really. Because as I said, GDP doesn't mean too much, other than it's pushing the nation to elevate their standard of living by blind industrialization. It is not in holistic and all-inclusive. It's only talking about producing more without thinking about what is happening to the resource. If you produce more, how seriously it is depleting the resource, and is the resource going to be available on the long-term basis? Fortunately, we have not come to the point, but the slides that you saw about the earth overshoot. In fact, there is a big crisis going on in America and many other developing countries, which are heavy users and discarders of electronic equipment, and all the way from windmills to space satellite and all that, where they use a lot of those what we call rare earth elements, which are in extremely short supply. And there is a big industry, that's what I was talking about in China, that they use backyard recycling to capture those elements using primitive methods. Now, what America and Europe and Australia also, I think they're doing it. They've got a special group of people who are tasked to look at how we can meet the need of these rare earth elements in the future. And so that is what GDP is, a totally wrong concept in my mind. If you have read the paper from Robert Constanza, and he is a big opposer of that. In fact, last year he published a short paper in Nature, and he says that he was thrilled to see that at the European Union had convened a special conference on these things. And he says he was thrilled to hear that quite some people were saying that we have been shift away. There has to be a complete paradigm shift. We cannot just use GDP as the indicator of progress and well-being. So that is the good start, I think.
I think we need to.
And your comment about co-mingling and that is an eternal problem. And again, it all ties up with the political will, implementation of the laws, and how seriously you are implementing the law. I know that it's not physically possible for any government to police every action, It's just impossible, given the cost and all that. So if there is somebody violating it, they slip through the system. But if the number is very large, then it causes problem, and no attention is given by the government. That is where the problem is.
So thank you. I think we have really run out of time. We can take those maybe in the break time, lunchtime. We can discuss. Sorry. So thank you very much. Let's have another round of applause for okay, that I have been mentioning. Okay, very, very good. And I'm happy that we had a short discussion after that. So we are really short of time. I really don't want, I wanted to summarize, but I think we are really short of time, and we should move on. There is a break now. Yes, there is a break now for a few minutes, let's say, and we come back quickly. And what time we should come back? 11:30? What is the time now? Okay, let's have a 5-10 minute break, and then we come back for a panel discussion. We come back for a panel discussion, and the title of the panel discussion is, just a minute. The title of the panel discussion is Charting the Path Forward, a Strategy and Partnerships for Accelerating SDG Implementation. And this is, I thought this panel discussion naturally flows from the panel discussion that we had yesterday, where we talked about institutional gaps, right? And then we have the experts here already, and we don't have the person from civil society. He has some personal problem, so Sangeeta will fill in for that because she's a representative from civil society. So thank you, Sangeeta, for agreeing to do that. So let's break now. Thank you very much. You know, just pay attention to, we can send you the slides, students, yeah, and please try to see how he has tried to link SDGs with waste management. SDGs with waste management, right? And the definition of sustainable development, sustainability, what you mean and all that, although I would have done that in the subsequent classes, but he has already, given you some idea, right? Okay, thank you very much. You all can leave if you want, yeah. I know that. Yeah. See, the topic is charting the path forward, strategy and partnerships for accelerating SDG implementation. And I thought that this is a, how to say, a follow-up of, this should have naturally happened here. We talked about the institutional gaps, the deficit yesterday in the keynote, in the panel discussion. And now we should also discuss about what is possible. Yeah, of course, I must tell you that there's no blueprint. If there was a blueprint, we would have, made it long time back. So there is no blueprint, but still we can talk about strategies, what could be done and what really works in different situations, particularly in developing countries. Strategy and partnerships for accelerating SDG implementation. So I would like to now call Dr. Svetlana, to introduce the panelists, and I will chair this session. So after the panelists have been introduced. Yes, please.
Good morning all. We will be starting the panel discussion on the topic of charting the path forward, strategic and partnership for accelerate SDG implementation. Our panelists are Dr. Sasank Grahacharya, sir, with over 2.5 decades of professional experience in the development and humanitarian aids. Dr. Sasank has held leadership roles with both government and UN agencies across Asia and Africa. His responsibilities encompassed the overall program management of diverse multi-sector, multi-stakeholders and multi-year initiatives. These large programs cover areas such as food and nutrition, livelihood, health, WASH, education, rural marketing and women empowerment. We welcome you, sir. Our second panelist is Sri Professor Jagdanand, sir.
No, he's not there.
He's not here.
He's being replaced by Sangeeta, but I don't think Sangeeta needs an introduction.
Yeah, okay. So next, our third panelist is Henrik Pacini, sir. He is an economist at UNCTAD Day in Geneva. He worked on applied trade and circular economic issues. He has led the United Nations component of the GDP 24.6 million UK funded Sustainable Manufacturing and Environmental Pollution Program since 2019, which focuses on reducing manufacturing and plastic pollution in Africa, South Asia and Pacific. With degree from University of Sao Paulo and KTH, he completed his postdoc in Harvard, co-chairing its first sector economic symposium. Sir has authored over 30 peer-reviewed articles on environmental trade and development. We welcome you, sir. So now I request Smita ma'am to moderate the session.
Yes. Please come to the stage. Yeah. Please come to the stage. Yes. Does anybody have a PPT to present?
I do.
To you. It's already uploaded. Okay. So, what I suggest is, since Dr. Grahacharya has a PPT, let us first have a look at the PPT. You also have? Okay. You have a PPT now for today's panel discussion? Okay. Okay, so let's have this first and then you can have it. Yes, please put up Dr. Grahacharya's PPT. You can please get him a mic. Yeah, you can.
Good morning. Respected Ma'am Sangeeta, Ma'am who is chairing this session, and Ms. Dr. Henrik, distinguished guest delegates. Supriya Madam is also here. So, I would speak for next 15-20 minutes, if I am allowed to, on this particular subject. But kindly bear with me, I'll try to mix up multiple things. I may start with physics and may end with metaphysics. So please bear with me. Next, look at the subject. The topic itself, I think it's the,
You can ask them tomorrow.
somebody can help me. The topic itself is very interesting, and I'm pretty sure all of us, though the number is quite small here, it may be increasing from time to time, that charting the path forward, strategies, partnerships, SDG implementations, quite early. But I will be focusing more on accelerating, because that is what we need right now, and the topic of discussion is that. And here I reach to physics. Acceleration is a word probably called out from physics. And if you go for the normal definition, it is rate of change of velocity with respect to time. My dear friends, all of us are quite aware of the difference between velocity and speed. Velocity, obviously it has a direction. 2030, the SDG goals to be achieved, so we have a direction where to go and what to do. So it is on that, I have purposefully given it in a green color, so that we are approaching for something to achieve. But unfortunately, if you see, there is a factor of retardation also, which doesn't accelerate your velocity, rather in the reverse direction it pulls you down. And the future is approaching so faster. Probably we didn't expect that it will rush to us with a higher rate of velocity in the reverse direction. So we have a time constraint here. 2030 is not very far. At least half of the time from 15 till this thing is already gone. Then the uncertainty and complexity retard this progress, whatever we have planned. Ma'am was talking a couple of minutes ago regarding the blueprint, but in the beginning we thought probably SDGs with its framework, with its target, with this and that, and multiple number of these things, so kind of blueprint sort of things. None of us did know probably regarding this COVID-19 pandemic. Probably in the SDG agenda it was not there, in just it came without notice or kind of thing. And in SDG 16 we talk about peace. I have put a question mark there. In the world where this conflict and wars are going on, see, the United Nations, I have spent more than 2 decades in United Nations, the UN system. I'm not criticizing anything or anybody, but I'm just flagging the issues for the other studians to think over. The primary objective was not to have war anymore in this group. For the last couple of years, all of us know what is happening, and that war is not necessarily happening in X and Y place, it is happening here itself. If something is happening in Y country, then the food deficit is here in this X country. So I will not have to talk about all those things, because the educated audience are quite smart enough to read what I mean to tell. Climate change and environmental degradation, obviously, so for which we have been listening. Persistent inequalities and disparities in countries and in communities. This difference is there. If you see, and I have some statistics to say around 37 out of 62 countries, 69 countries, they are having serious, debt distress. Debt is going on. And when talk about India, not a single woman is able to deliver a healthy baby. The reason being, 56% of Indian women are anemic. And in addition to that, every individual have a debt on its neck. So if you pull down somebody, think about his or her growth. Now next slide please. And I was talking about physics. I think being a student of chemistry, I must mention a little bit about chemistry. There is a reaction called sublimation reaction in chemistry. And in that, normally it ignores the immediate next step. Solid to gas, gas to solid, the immediate phase it ignores. Unfortunately, in development sector, that doesn't happen. It has to pass through the next immediate step. It is not like that you do something, press some button and something will happen tomorrow. It's not, it's not like Midas touch, or it's not like a magic or a mystic. It has to follow the procedure. Okay, the pace may differ. The next. Here is what I want to focus on, and probably that is what is our topic of partnership strategies and all. With my 25 plus years of experience in development sector, at least one small thing I have realized, that development doesn't take place. No development takes place in isolation. I will talk all possible negative thing about COVID, but one thing COVID has taught us very seriously, that even a small tiny various cannot grow, cannot develop if it is in isolation. That is why the word isolation was so popular during the COVID time. So in development sector, whosoever, whatsoever, wheresoever want to develop, cannot just follow the path of isolation. I cannot think that I am here alone and I will do whatever I want to do, for any sector, any project, any program. So that is what we must think. So if it is not isolation, then definitely the other one is collaboration. I'll come to that later. Next, please. You know all these STDs and the renewed cooperation, universality, interconnected, integrated, leaving no one behind, everyone has a part to play. Here I want to focus on that universality. Friends, let's not get confused or mix universality and uniformity. Two different things. Uniformity, if you think that I and you will look alike, think alike, talk alike, behave alike, sorry. At least this country has taught us very well, since the beginning, that unity in diversity. We can diverse. Look at the color code, the dress that we have here. So colorful, so brilliant. We have a festival called Holi, where multiple colors are there, and we enjoy and cherish that. And that's Holi. That's Holi. Next. So then we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. What is the meaning of that? That means if everybody, and I can be a little difficult to you, but I can't be that difficult or harsh to my own family. So if the globe is a family, then I must treat you the way I want my student to be treated. So it's enabling a lifestyle which has all those possible kind of things, the humanity, the gender equality, promotion of culture, peaceful coexistence. We can exist. But coexistence, peacefully coexistence, is a matter of concern that we need to think. Then only we'll talk about the global citizenship. And here we talk Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole Vasudha, the whole earth, the whole universe is my Kutumba, my family. Next, please. We know these 17 SDG goals, ambitious, specific, actionable, concise and communicative. But one particular point I want to draw your attention. Global in nature, but if you see, observe minutely, every single thing of these 17s are being governed or managed or nurtured at the local level. If I'm allowed to, I'll take 30 seconds or 40 seconds to narrate a small story. It's an educational institute, so I'm tempted to talk about the students. In a small class, let's say in standard 4 or standard 5, the instructor came and he wanted to take a test. Normally they do that kind of business. So he has a small map, a map of a country or of a state or something. Then he saw who is the most brilliant student here. At least half a dozen students raised their hands. The professor did one thing, he cleared all these papers and put it there. Then he asked, you fix it. Let's see how smart you are. You must have studied geography. So let's see how you fix it. People tried, they failed. One smart, intelligent boy or girl, he or she did fix it. And it was correct. It was absolutely right. Then the professor asked, the instructor asked, fine. But in my experience of last 10 years of being an instructor or an inspector, I've never experienced these things. How could you manage to do that? How could you fix that map? The little boy, was a little reluctant, but he wanted to, under pressure, he wanted to respond. And the response was, sir, I do not know which map it is. I do not know whether it is Somalia, Ethiopia, India, Koraput, or I do not know. But I did only one small thing. I didn't even saw the front side of the map. I just reversed it. I saw a human face. And I am seeing myself on the mirror every day, my own face. So I tried to fix it, the nose, the ears, the eyes, and all these things. And when this human face is fixed, I put it down, I just reversed it, and here is the map. Friends, my story ends here. If at all we can try to fix that human being, then why this country, all the countries and all the countries' programs will be probably solved. And if at all we are lacking in anything to fix, that is the concept of humanity and being human. Next. So if we do that small thing, people, individual, state, country, continentals, all of us know about these 5 P's, most interesting 5 P's. People, planet, prosperity, partnership. Normally people keep peace here and partnership there because the goal is in 17. But I consciously bring it here. Because the ultimate goal, aim of human being is to have peace. And peace is nothing that something will achieve or secure or that kind of thing. It's an experience. It's a state of mind and you experience it. And regarding the experience, maybe I'll come later. Here if we talk about the people, we all talk about that well-being of everyone, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, no one left behind and all. And if you see, all these 5s are interrelated and they demand integrated thinking and approaches to achieve this. You cannot have one thing and the thing. Somebody told, this is something relates to music. If you want to play some music, it's not that you are a tablist, you come and play the tabla. She is a harmonium, she can sit harmonium, somebody with a violin, somebody with something. And at the end, somebody will sing the song. No, it is simple. It has to be sung, it has to be coordinated, it has to be put together. Then only the music will have some impact and result and so on. So convergence is essential in our school of thoughts, at least if at all we are dealing with SDGs and to achieve it. Next. I was talking about no one to be left behind. The fundamental question comes, why are they left behind? Why? Very fundamental things. They are left behind because they are economically dispersed. And the one who doesn't have that economic ability normally is not nurtured, seen, valued well in the current society and even in the past. Socially oppressed. We have seen many plethora of examples, not only in this country, elsewhere also. Starting from bourgeois, starting from the STs in this country or downtrodden, vulnerable people. So socially oppressed. And when somebody is economically dispersed, socially oppressed, obviously he loses his voice. So politically voiceless. The culture of silence develops there automatically. Even if he or she wants to do something, but the society, the environment, the entire system just choke his or her voice. Next. But interestingly, there are quite a lot of positive things are also happening. See, I do work in a government setup. I have to talk a little bit about that. Certain efforts have been taken in certain areas. So if I'm allowed, I'll take a very small example of the state of Odisha. This is an example only. So these people, those who are left behind, after getting little economically not disturbed, socially not so oppressed or at least being empowered and educated, then they have started using the political voicelessness is gone. For your information, those who are not from this state, Odisha is the only state probably which has more than, even though it is expected for 50% of representation in PRIs means Panchayat Raj institutions, the local self-government, in which Odisha has more than 60% of female representation. That means they have the ability to raise some voice in the political system. To have that, the government of India has that 100 plus some aspirational districts in which Odisha has 10, and out of these 10, 7 or 8 they belong to KBK region. KBK region means Koraput, Balangir and Kalahandi. Now earlier it was 3 districts, now it is 8 districts if you see the map today. And some experimentation has been done. There is a KVK administrator, there is a KVK program. KVK means I am talking about Koraput, Balangir and Kalahandi. Then what we observe? We observe that the convergence is there, collaboration is there, and there is a positive competitions. The central government schemes, the state, district communities, they come together, and finally there is a progress. A trend is being observed there. Next. By the way, all these districts, out of the 8, 7 are from KBK districts, and out of these 10, most of them are having tribal populations. And these are the people, the STs and STs which I was talking about, the scheduled tribe and scheduled caste. They are the so-called economically dispersed, socially oppressed, and politically voiceless. This is a statistical things I would like to bring to your attention. I have borrowed it from Niti Aayog from 3 major reports, 2018, 19, and 20. If you see, these are the indexes, these India score indexes. Here I have mentioned about these. You can see a positive trend. Though the rank of Odisha is fluctuating, it goes up, again come down, but it depends on other states' performance. But if you see the figures, the indexes, from 51 in 1819, it has gone to 58 in 1920, then again it has gone to 61. So there is a positive trend. And in India also from 57 to 60 to 66, again it is a positive trend. At least this is the statistics that we are getting. So if you see, if it is 0 to, now I'll come to the next slide to talk about the aspirants and all these things. So we are in the performing 50 to 64 zone, so that is what is happening. Next please. This is an interesting slide I would like to draw your attention. We talk about the 17 SDGs, but if you see these two, the second one, that food security, that no hunger. Here we have probably, I don't tell seriously failed, but I think there is a whole lot of improvement is required. We need to put a little more energy. We have the nutrition mission, we have Poshan Abhijan and whatnot. And fortunately, I had also worked for more than 2 decades in the food sector in World Food Program, both in this country and outside also. But if you see all these indicators, 18, 19, 20, it is still in that aspirant stage, 0 to 49, the red marks. And if you talk about the quality of education, yesterday there was a ASHA report, if you see, the situation is not very encouraging. Similarly, if you see the gender equality, there also we have serious concern. Those who are Orias here, I'm sorry, I will try to draw your attention to a particular thing. Any one of you who know when Revati was written, you know what is Revati? Revati is a story, quite famous, probably known to most of the Orias, and it was written by Fakir Mohan Senapati. Fakir Mohan Senapati, he passed away in early 1908 or during that time. That means the story is written something in 1896 or 97, if I'm not Revati. Revati, for your information, sir, is a story about a little girl. She wants to study, but the environment doesn't allow, the family doesn't allow, the system doesn't allow, and finally she gave up. And with malaria and some other, these things, she dies. And in that time, it is told, you are a girl, as per Indian school of thoughts and the practice, you are supposed to cook, supposed to get married and produce babies. What the hell you will do with studies? Dear friends, I'm sorry to say, even today, those Revatis have not been empowered. I'm sorry to say, I have a statistics of something around a decade back, 14 or 15 or 16, when I was doing a little bit of my PhD work. There are some PVTGs, particularly vulnerable groups in this state, where the literacy level of female hasn't touched second double digit. I'm talking the story of last 10 years or so. If you want, I don't mind to also name this Dongriya Kandha and all those people in primitive Rayagada district. So here we need to talk about the equality, the gender equality part of the thing. And you see, we are still in the aspiring thing. Good that we are progressing, but when you talk about only the literacy level, it doesn't stop there. The quality of literacy is there. I would invite all of you to go through the ASHA report which was produced yesterday. It speaks quite a lot of things. Even standard 10 students are unable to solve the problem of standard 3 and 4. And okay, I'm not getting into those micro details. So you see that kind of thing. And not only Odisha, in a country like India, the situation is also not that very different either. If you see, India is probably one country where, why India? Okay, I'll come to that later on. Starting from conception to cremation, you have some or other program associated to food for the well-being of people. If you get pregnant, you have ICDS, so the pregnant woman gets some food. You delivered a baby, for the lactating mother, you have also some food. Then you go for MDM, work food for work, you go for and you die, then you have a, Harishchandra program and all these things. But still we have the problem of having this, no hunger kind of issues. I talked about the gender equality. You see the figures are still aspirant, but at least we are in a progression stage. Next, please. I mentioned about state of Odisha, did some good work, has been doing some good work with the 5T and all those kind of things. And probably one of the state in the country which has a SDG budget. But if you see all the 17 SDGs, those were possible, those which can be managed by the state. So we have at least some budget allocation specifically for that. And if we put all this together, it really amounts quite a lot. So that means the state is conscious about the SDGs, these things, and working in that line. And that's all quite a good distance. And Odisha has also that SDG indicator framework. And here is the demand and where is the resource. So there is a resource and link is there. And why it is done there? Because to arrive an estimate that if this much of input I give and the progress trend is like this, then by 2030, there is all possibility that we can achieve these things. Just for your information, not related to this slide, maybe the previous one, quite a lot of interesting things have also happened in this country. I should not only keep talking about this, let me also tell. When I was a so-called young development professional, Supriya Madam was also watching me over the years. We used to talk about, DFID was also involved in that kind of thing, about a Bimaru state. May I please ask who knows about this Bimaru? Bimaru is a Hindi term. Bimaru means somebody who is sick, ill. And those are Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and all. But in the recent data says, Niti Aayog's data of 2022, that there is a positive trend. In fact, the rate of progress in these Bimaru states are much higher comparative to other states. I don't think I have that slide here, but if you don't mind, can I go? Am I allowed to go back? Maybe just before previous one. Here, if you see Himachal and all these things, see the trend of Bihar, even though it is in the low, but you see the rate of change. The progress is quite high. The pace, because we are talking about acceleration. When you talk about accelerating, then you cannot ignore the rate of pace, the way it moves. So the achievements are quite, and these 4 or 5 states was literally pulling this country down. So now at least because of population size, because of the gravity, the intensity of these things, it has started taking a good, next please. Next. So you can see this is just a pictorial format, that if you want to do any development activities, like Odisha has tried, so many partners you need to have. Be it the educational institute, be it corporate bodies, be it the media, be it anything. Central government, state government, UN, blah, blah, blah. And so many schemes catering to all cross-section of people, all these things. This is just a small thing. I might have also missed 1 or 2, or at least few. Next. Yeah, so these are all what you know, but I just try to draw your attention to good governance. I represent an organization called Center for Good Governance. So we do monitor the flagship programs of government and do these things. But one interesting thing I would like to mention here, if you talk about good governance, the World Bank report says better governance, definitely better social security, social justice, nutritional status of mother and children are higher. Talk about environment, if you remember Indira Gandhi, who speaks very clearly that poverty is the worst environmental pollutant. So if you have good governance, then definitely all those things get resolved. Next please. These are the strategies, I'll just read out. Whatever I spoke, I tried to just to synthesize here, stakeholders engagement and collaboration, private partnership, civil society organizations, and government has to take a lead. The monitoring mechanism, the capacity building, where the educational institute do play a significant role. Then the sector-specific these things with innovation and technology intervention, be it health, education, infrastructure development. Talk about the climate action, environmental conservation, renewable energies. I'm happy to know that this campus is also a green campus. Quite a lot of activities have been done here. Next, please. In the government of India also, and so is state government, focusing a lot on organic farming so that inorganic users are less. Inclusive policies, build social inclusion, decentralized governance. I just gave an example to you about the women's represented in the PRIs. That's an example. The youth engagement. I'm sorry, Professor Jagdananda is not here. At least he could have been representing my youth organization. He could tell how the youth these things. And sorry, ma'am, I'll take 15 seconds on that. If you see the demography also, the Indian youth, the size is much larger, higher than any of the youth population in any part of the globe, be it Europe, be it whatever. So the energy is there, interest is there, the engagement will definitely push the SDG move, accelerate. Global partnership, we speak, this is a brilliant example of having global partnership which CUTM has done with Australian University now. Knowledge exchange, obviously this positive deviance, what you call in Bangla, Keno Pargana, in Odia we call it Movie Parivi. So if I can do, if she could do, why can't I? So this is a positive deviance, application of successful models. Human rights, listing, resilience building, Odisha's DRR, disaster risk reduction is well known in the globe, so you can also adopt those things. Definitely communications, the awareness building and advocacy of such kind of things should help. Next please. Now comes about these things when we talk about creating responsible professionals for advancing SDGs. The educational institutes, the academic institutes do play a significant role. But for academic institutes, one interesting thing is their theory doesn't help. There was a time when people will learn something, put it down on the papers. Those days have gone. Here, more than preaching, the practice is important. And happy to know that CUTM has adopted some of these institutional sustainability practices, being an example by itself to having this carbon reduction emissions. I think my colleague could be speaking about it, rain harvest, water harvestment, rooftop garden, green campus. I was told that there's quite a lot of greenery here. Uses of solar energy, waste reduction, etc. Ethical research and innovations, obviously if you leave it to some other body who sponsors and who evaluates, then a possibility of getting biased is there. So I've used, consciously using the word, conduct impartial, independent third-party monitoring, so that to let us know what exactly is happening in the SDG indicators. Not that I want to put myself in a rosy picture and show you a green photo. No, the reality should come for the table to be discussed. Curriculum integration. So whatever you do, it has to be there in the curriculum, so that students, the young mass from their very early days, know what is they have to do. The next please. I'll finish it next 2 minutes. Capacity building awareness, social entrepreneurship. So certain projects, certain action research the educational institutes should do, which I am told that CUTM has been doing in community, that can be replicated and that can showcase the actual happening. See, action speaks louder than words. So if you see something, the pedagogy of doing learning something by doing or something by being would help you. Then the policy advocacy, like this kind of conference, etc., can raise the voice and influence the decision makers. Collaboration and networking, both in communication to have some knowledge dissemination, some best practices, and communicating these things, disseminating this information to the rest of the world. It's a collective responsibility. Next, please. Here is an important thing I would like to draw your attention. Allow me 1 minute for this. We talk quite a lot about global peace, equality, and all these things. But where are we? Where is the value system? We talk about peace, put it in the 16th SDG, but at the same time we fight each other. Every single day. I'm not talking about only the last 2 years fights. I'm talking about even in our family. Even earlier there was a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Now that Kutumba has become Amedui Amaradui. I spoke in Oriya. Me and my wife had 2 children. That has come reduced Amedui Amarayake. Me and my wife and we have 1 baby. Now this has come a new trend, Amedui Amarkenai. We are 2 and we don't have anybody. My dear friends, The nuclearity has gone to that extent, Amedui Karanai, K9. Me and my wife, we are couple, fine. But she is different, I am different. So this is the way we are now marching on. At least at that time, if you analyze these things, if the value system at least exists there, then the war would not take place. As Swami Vivekananda tells, in every nation's flag, instead of fights, there will be collaboration. So these are the SDGs. I think the slide is available with you, you can tell. And I must thank profusely to CUTM and the organizers, the Australian University, to have organized this program here itself in the soil of Odisha, just 10 kilometers away from here. In 270 BC, a Kalinga war was fought. A war probably the history would never forget. But that war changed Chandasoka to Dharmasoka. The great emperor Asoka got converted. And he collaborated first, started from New. He deputed his own daughter and son across the globe, and at least to the Asian countries, to preach the Buddhist school of thoughts, what we call about ahimsa, all the value system that I have spoken. And if you, any one of you, if you have a program tomorrow, can take them to Dhawli and show that in these inscriptions, Asoka's inscription, all these things are there which I am mentioning there. The righteousness, the environmental condition, the, you see the mindful consumption. We are all great. I want to eat alone. I'm least bothered about my brother. No. Give to others also. And finally, the global interconnectedness and the partnership. And if we do all those things, if I think about my brother, if I do consider it's there, then the next slide please, which I conclude here, that not today, but in the Upanishads, in the Rig Veda, the Indian school of thoughts very clearly mentioned, Sangachadhvam, Sangbadadhvam, Sangbo Manasi Janatam, Deva Bhagam Jatha Purbe, Sanjanana Upasate. It's in Sanskrit, but I'll try to translate a little bit. The translation itself will take another session, but I'll just try to draw your attention. May we move in harmony. May our purpose be the same. May our intentions and aspirations be alike, so that a common objective unifies all of us and will achieve and accelerate SDG. Thank you all.
Thank you, for a very, very interesting and enlightening presentation. I wish we could go on, but we are running short of time. Our session, next session, let us push it like another 20-30 minutes. It's not possible because we have two other panelists who would like to speak. So,
I'm extremely sorry if I have taken a little more time. Please bear with me.
My presentation will be a bit shorter, or no presentation, just some remarks. Thanks, Dr. Gahasharia, for your take and structured presentation. You working in a training institute, especially for civil servants, play a very important role in the attaining or going towards the SDGs. So my name is Enrique Passini. I work for the United Nations, UNCTAD, known as UNCTAD, the UN Trade Agency. So I come from an essentially economic body within which there is an environment unit. So I work with the Trade and Environment Unit of UNCTAD. So as an economist by formation, I'm a Brazilian born, also one of the BRICS. There is similarities to India in my own country, and I studied economics, and I then got into environmental economics. But as an economist, which I can't escape of it, we always think that the essence of wealth is to reduce, not to make more, expand necessarily, but is to reduce costs, reduce friction. So reduce the level of effort that you need to go from A to B. That applies to energy systems, to financial systems, to the operation of a factory. Reducing costs is the essence of wealth. And neglecting environmental aspects, neglecting education, increases costs. So the SDGs, they are ambitious and very hard to reach. I think the previous presentation showed that many countries, if not all, are lagging behind the 17 SDGs and their performance indicators. But the SDGs, they help to coordinate our minds. So people here in Odisha, people back home in São Paulo, all use the same diagrams, and they all standardize and synchronize their thoughts towards the same, let's say, road or objectives to be achieved. And without that, created by the multilateral system, everybody will have their own goals. It will be more of a loose end or unguided rockets trying to pursue development. So this synchronization of thoughts and policies helps to unite people in the spaceship Earth, which we are all flying in, right? I'll mention a few points that came to my mind while listening to the presentation. I think they also connect to the next one on mostly social aspects. First is subsidies. Everywhere in the world, we realize that subsidies are good in some areas and are bad in some areas. Right? Leaving to the markets alone, you have an under-provision of education. Right? You have very few people learning how to read and write, very few engineers, and society will be stuck in the Stone Age or in the Middle Age almost forever. So countries around the world, including India, including Brazil, including Switzerland, realize that we need to subsidize education, we need to send more people to school, and that brings later on a lot of value to society, and that became universally accepted. The same with healthcare. In one way or another, healthcare is subsidized across the world. And the same with nourishment, like school meals and having people be able to afford the minimum for them to operate and to be able to think about things beyond their immediate survival was also seen and understood as something essential. But we have not yet agreed that dealing with environmental problems, reverse logistics, we're very good at taking things to us, from farm to fork, so to say. But taking the leftover food or the e-waste or the broken chair back to a processing site, that service is not subsidized. Reverse logistics is underdeveloped and not subsidized around all. It's subsidized to a certain extent. Waste collection is mostly seen as a subsidy, but it's not enough, and in many parts of the world it's a broken system, it's a very insufficient system. So maybe we need to realize that subsidies in environmental areas are an important part of the solution. And that touches, of course, water treatment facilities, guided industrial developments. I work a lot on the plastics processes in the UN. We are active there. We are working on materials that can replace plastics, like, say, natural materials, natural fibers, that can displace plastics in some areas. But to start a production or to upscale a production of a natural fiber made cup or bag, it's very expensive, and it's very hard to find an organization to de-risk that startup phase. So perhaps subsidies could play a role also in guided industrial development. I think it is useful for the MBA students hearing who certainly work in areas like that. When I talk about subsidies, because subsidies are often seen as a bad boy by the international trade system, especially by the World Trade Organization, which was the system was developed to maximize economic efficiency and to avoid the problems of cartelization, unfair competition among countries. There's a lot of merit to that, but those were the days prior to the sustainable development process, right, where environmental considerations were not within the subsidies discussion. So there's an ongoing process at the World Trade Organization, which heavily regulates how subsidies can be applied to become more permissive to environmental subsidies. The second point is to attain, to move towards the SDGs, is exchange. So moving, how is moving your legs? People who move around in life, who study in different universities, who live in different cities, who have the opportunity to live in different countries, who work in different companies, tend to do better in life than those who don't. That's something I observe a lot, and something that I even use when I hire professionals to work with me. So moving around, both as an individual, as a professional, as a student, and also as an institution to do partnerships, help you to transfer knowledge, or is essential to transfer knowledge. That's the essence of things. We talk about knowledge transfer and tech transfer, forget about it. It's about moving people around, moving engineers, students. That's how we bring it, plus investment and cross-learning. So we need to have a more exchange between, not only between institutions such as STIS or São Paulo University, or between the UN and Centurion or Curtin University, but we need to have more exchange between worlds. What do I mean between worlds? Growing up, I had access to a slum, to a waste recycling facility, to water treatment plant, but I never went there. I went there later in life, and I found it fascinating. So I grew up in a comfortable house, in a comfortable apartment, isolated from the environmental problem. It was someone else's problem. I never saw it. I never saw those who were affected by it. And I think we need to preempt that problem. I think we discussed a lot of primary education yesterday. To make those who are in the elite or comfortable position of the society to see both sides of the coin earlier in life than later, or many people never see it. So without that, without people becoming a bit bothered by how the things look in the backstage, with the reverse logistics, in the environmental aspects, we'll not have any political action, any change. So we also have to have this exchange between school and practice. Was very well mentioned by Professor Dr. Gerhard now. We need to have students going into companies, into factories, into municipal agencies, to have part of their education, parts of internships, seeing the things before they actually graduate. Don't be like me. I graduated, well, I did an internship in a bank and in a car retail company, but I was very green. I didn't know what was to work before I actually fell in the market. Don't fall for that. Start before, learn before, because then your uptake in the market and as your usefulness to society will be much higher, much better. Finally, I'd like to touch on the point of not seeing as products as standalone things, like things that you buy, a car, a house, bottled water, a telephone. Think about, I think that especially goes to the students here doing their MBAs and going to work as marketing professionals in the future, as managers. Think about marketing things as services. That's one of the big holy grails of environmental sustainability. Like a shared washing machine is much more efficient in terms of water and energy consumption per kilogram of clothes washed than individual private washing machine. That's the classic example. I have a shared washing machine in my building. It's being used 60-70% of the time. A private washing machine is used 2% of the time. It's a big time waste equipment. Same with cars. I think those of you who have cars are parked. Now the car is just wasting there. I mean, what if you had a subscription of a car club that could give you access to a car when you need it? So we can have less cars providing the same amount of services pooled digitally. The same with the water systems, right? You have bottled water, plastic bottled water, which is a product, a standalone Marvel solution to hydration, and that's creating a problem. Right? The plastic associated to the water system. We should move towards a service of bottled water treatments, gravity filters, ways to get clean water out of the tap, or to clean it at the point instead of relying on this sort of encapsulated vessel made of plastics, which has become a big enemy of society. Same can be applied to clothing, to housing. In Switzerland, I like this system there where 98% of the people rent, they don't buy a house. Because if you buy a house and you want to do something on it, you need to find the right constructor, you need to develop your own fix of patches. And the learning curve is immense. And if you have a building block with 1,000 units that are the same or very similar, the service provider, and you can already find the one who have or the company that manages those buildings can already negotiate prices, standardize waste treatment, and there's a lot of economies of scale that you can do, and also it ends up being more efficient in terms of material metabolism. Of course, that's a context of a rich country. But having access to things, not as your own, but as a subscription, can be an interesting way to avoid some types of waste. One point, though, I think linking to the next presentation, and giving an example of plastics. We've been working a lot on plastics, like changing plastics to other materials. We mapped 200 products that can replace plastics. Cotton, wool, jute, glass, minerals, stainless steel, big in India, I love it. But what you see is that every time you shift from a single-use thing, like a plastic product, to another single-use thing, like a paper cup, you're not doing a good service to the environment or to society. The problem continues. Plastics pollute a lot in the end of their life, they're persistent, but paper produces a lot to make. It's very water intensive and also uses bleaching agents and others to make paper, uses land, biomass. As we've heard, biomass is already over depleted. Professor Hassan explained this well. So we converge the thought that the best products or the best ways to access things is to reuse and to reusables, like those bottles there. But every time you have a reusable, you don't have a product per se, you have a service. And you need to have someone to wash the vessels. Certification of doing so, you often send, and we put it bluntly, women to the kitchen or to the backstage to do that washing. That can have negative social consequences. And we don't want to adopt a system that is better environmentally, but also that creates more social inequality. Finally, my last point is that don't fall for the church of greenness. Green can also be dangerous. Green can be toxic. There are a lot of problems. Actually, you have more recycling. The way it is now done, you have more people exposed to diseases, to risks, to labor risks. If you have a lot of circular platforms that allow you to lease cars or to rent clothes instead of buying them, and wonderful shared washing machines, wonderful. But what if the shared washing machines are all owned by the same company? You can have a monopolistic structure emerging also in a circular market, and the monopoly can be as harmful to the society as pollution can be. So those classic things of governance and market structures are also applicable for a circular green economy as it is to the brown economy that we live in today. So always keep in mind that market structures, we need to continue this work as it exists, not replace the economy through a new thing and fall for the same traps of the past where we had monopolies and cartels running things. Yeah, and I just wanted to bring those points here as a general insights, and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, I think really running short of time. I really don't know what about the next session, but yes. Can you give me the microphone? Can you give her the mic? Or you want to speak to Dr. Slide? Because right approach.
Okay, so my presentation flows very well or easily from the previous one, yeah? The next one, sorry, that's the wrong one. Please forward, yeah. So, I'm really focusing here on what both presenters have talked about, which is partnerships, yeah? And alliances. There is a very large trend working against these alliances, yeah? Yet we are part of several alliances. I'd like to go to the next slide. So we are part of like a statewide alliance of female sex workers, gender sexual minorities, women at the grassroots, women with disability, all coming together, yeah? Multiple organizations coming together for direct policy and advocacy and negotiation with government. So this has proved to be a very strong alliance and proved to actually bring a lot of government to the table, yeah, which they never came to earlier, but now they see their constituency, so they're there. The second is the alliance of grassroots collectives, which is at the national level, yeah. Here there are 30 organizations and federations of the same constituencies, but in multiple states, yeah, building on the same kind of model. And again, coming together to bring voice in center stage grassroots women and grassroots constituencies, their voice, their issues at different levels. And then globally, there is the WIO Commission, which is in 40 countries globally, and this is again a network of grassroots organizations. The reason I'm bringing this out is because there needs to be an emphasis on community, yeah? Now these communities bring to the table a vast constituency which is ready to act. They're mobilized constituencies. These are not individuals, right? Many of them are looking for environmental solutions, and we've had discussions on the side, all of us here. And this global nexus represents a perfect forum to do this. Yeah? So to bring together a learning platform, yeah, that's what we all want. What are the goals of these alliances? A platform to center stage voice, yeah, their innovations, the leadership of the communities, co-creation of innovations, learning platforms, and we have something called grassroots academies, where the grassroots showcase their methodologies, their innovations to other grassroots other grassroots communities. We just had one in Bangalore International Center last year, with Nepal, Bangladesh coming in to learn from us, yeah, from our grassroots. Building cadres of trainers at multiple levels, okay, to build capacity for reach, for effectiveness, lower costs, yeah. And basically helping community-based organizations, I cannot tell you how important the last slide is, it may not appear so, to establish themselves as autonomous, sustainable institutions, yeah, working on feminist principles of justice and of, equality. This is really critical, and in fact, Azim Premji Foundation, which is one of the lead philanthropy organizations, has established a full vertical to do this. Yeah, this is a question I asked yesterday of one of the people here who was a bureaucrat. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but one of the speakers. And it was the fact that these large CBOs are built by government, not sustained, right? So to sustain them, the wealth that has been left behind by government, this Azim Premji Foundation has set up a vertical only to help these organizations stand up. And this brings very rich social capital to the development sector. So you want to do any innovation, you have a massive organization there to do it, right? Which if you don't and you enter a community with nobody organized, it's really hard to do. Yeah. Next slide. So co-creation, this is really critical. Yeah. We have many spaces where there needs to be work. For example, we have done something called MOVE, which is a very market-driven, very sustainable model for entrepreneurship development. And through the alliance, we have tested it with multiple kinds of populations, and it has turned out to be very robust. For every 100 we train, we have 30 entrepreneurs, standard. No matter what the constituency, no matter what the year, okay, we have 30 solid businesses. But only through the alliance were we able to test, does it work with FSWs, sex workers, does it work with transgenders, who does this work with, yeah? And who does it fail with, and to what extent does it work? Now, intergenerational dialogues, another cutting-edge innovation that is happening now in many parts of India. We also tried it, and it can be used in multiple ways to work on gender-based violence with women and girls, to build second-line leadership with younger and older activists, yeah, to work on policy advocacy, where we critically reviewed UN Women priorities. I talked a little bit about this yesterday. So, and then go to the next one, co-creation. Okay, how important co-creation is. Okay, next slide. So, last slide. What are the ways forward? Yeah, the need to build not just alliances, but if we take the Global South Nexus, working relationships, okay, with all of us here, right, at the table. So, one is for, co-creation, which we talked about. But in the new areas of co-creation that are desperately needed, that have been called for on the ground, and I'm putting it here because we work with communities and they want this, right? On environmental issues, greening of livelihoods, we are building livelihoods across all these communities. How do we green them? Yeah, you have ideas. Bring to the table, to these communities, some of these ideas. Yeah? And on waste management, right? Which we have heard a lot of today. How do we get communities to engage in this for these SDGs, right? To advance these SDGs. For digital inclusion, we're working heavily on digital innovations now, and we have brought in partners for that. How do we work to share and to co-create digital inclusion, yeah? Intersectional, intergenerational innovations for SDG 5 and SDG 16, right? To build second-line leadership, to have, multiple voices shape policy, shape innovation. Care economy pilots really needed. The care accelerator, which I was talking about from UN Women, is now pushing at a global level. We need pilots on this. We need research on this. We need policy packs on this, yeah? Urgently at this point. Now, for this, we need academia to collaborate, conduct research, build knowledge with civil society on these innovations, right? Not independently, but co-create and build it together, yeah? Second, we need the UN, and we're working closely with UN Women here, as well as, organizations in the UN focused on environment, to create a global learning and advocacy platforms, yeah? So we're doing a lot of advocacy with UN Women on economic justice and rights and gender-based violence. Similarly, we need something on environment as well. So basically, that's it. I will stop here, right? And open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Sangeeta. I think you have given certain recommendations here already. Yeah, how we can collaborate, how the grassroots organizations, community-based organizations, the civil society can collaborate with academia and also with the UN and what could be done. I think this pretty much, summarizes a few things that I wanted to focus on, because we are really running out short of time. I'm only worried about the next session. So what we shall do is, thank you. The government perspective, I think pretty much covered a whole lot of things, but we still have to see what is happening at the ground level. Yeah, although you gave us all the factual information, and it's very exciting to see where we are, where India is, and where Odisha is with respect to the different SDGs. But we still need to be convinced, how much of it is really getting translated at the ground level, and that is something. We should be optimistic, because we still have about 6 years to go. Okay, and Dr. Pasini, he focused on the environment and the circular economy, particularly on plastic circularity, of which we will hear more in the last session. In the last session, which has been combined, his keynote and the session has been combined, right? Okay, we'll hear more about that. And of course, Sangeeta will brings in that civil society energy, yeah, and that is very, very, very interesting, and it's fresh for us. And now let's open it to some questions, because if I don't want to summarize more, so please ask some questions so that we can get some response from our esteemed panel members. Right? Please do. Yes, please. Please give him the mic. If there is a mic.
Yes, I am Chinmoy Kumar Das from School of Management, Centurion University. My contest related to sustainable manufacturing. It may be tending towards Dr. Henrik. He was talking about smart products in respect to washing machine, or it may be a smart fan. But my contest is here, as the world is governing by disruptive technology. Today we don't know the money, the power resources we have invested. Tomorrow many companies will be absolutely out of the market. When we are discussing in such a platform, and you see this conference, how we can address such kind of situations?
Disruptive technologies.
Yes.
I know that you have a presentation on this. Yeah. So maybe if anybody wants to respond, we can take a couple of questions. This is about disruptive technology. Any other? Yes. Yes, please. Please introduce yourself.
Myself, Abanikanta Bhadra from Department of Botany. My question is, as Dr. Acharya was telling, how you interpret and project the central government decision to restrict and not allow the students below 16 years to coaching centers in the front of quality education?
To be honest with you, I would prefer not to respond to it. But at the same time, see, everything has plus and minus these things. Students, coaching center, quite a lot of negative things are happening in that category. So to regulate something, government might have taken some decisions for the time being. And remember, the decisions of government, in any government, is not necessarily sustainable. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good you are admitting that. Okay, now any other? Yes, please. Professor Mahanti, please stand up. Yeah.
I am Ashu Mahanti. Actually, the yesterday session I have heard that a success rate of
Please speak into the mic.
the yesterday session, I think there was the discussion that success rate of STG is hardly 12 to 15%. But in the today's projection, we saw that I think the growth of STG, I think the awareness is very much either around 50+% like that. That means how the STG is measured, success rate of STG, that is the STG index score. Sir was talking about STG index score. Actually, how exactly it is measured? Is there any way to measure
Measure the success of SDGs, right?
Yeah.
That is what you're asking.
I'm started talking about.
Yeah.
But yesterday we learned that hardly the success rate is hardly 12 to 15% in SDG. But today I think the figure is something different. This is question number one. And one more question is, actually there are SDG came into effect from 2015 with the 17 SDG goals. And the target is up to 2030, and already in between, I think more than half of the time is done. Is the success rate around 15%? So by 2030, how we can achieve at the goal?
This question is these are asked to me. I am very simple answer.
Related to the panel, this is no questions.
Okay. There is a very well defined mechanism to measure SDGs. If you have seen one of my slides which speaks about, the goals are divided into targets, then it goes into indicators and all those kind of things. And not only here in Odisha, but in the global framework, these are being arranged. You Google and you will find that SDG network, all this monitoring mechanism is there. Now coming to the question of yours, there is a difference between what you had heard yesterday and what you are hearing today. I beg to differ to you to some extent because, see, there are quite a lot of things. In physics we talk something about frame of reference. I am not sure which you have heard yesterday, with what frame of reference, whether it is talking about a state or a country or a continent or a global framework. But what I presented here is something local related to Odisha and India. And some of the references are there which I have presented. And it's not necessarily that which you spoke a couple of minutes ago that I am trying to give you a very rosy picture. No. If you have seen SDG number 2, SDG number 4 and 5, I have told how red it looks. We certainly admit, not only me, but the entire world, that yes, you have miles to go in doing these things. 1. 2, you talked about we have already midway through, only 50-60% time is gone, what to do. If you have seen my slide, which I have made very clear, that okay, we are in a trend of progress. But unfortunately, the uncertainty of COVID and the war and all conflict, those kind of things has brought us down. We cannot ignore that aspect. That's why I told a very solid within. The value system need to develop with individual as well as in global countries and all these things to see that those retarding factors are not influencing or directly pulling the progress down or retarding the rate of the progress. So because you put so much of energy in our area, we call these things, if I am allowed to tell, the 12 varsara tapasya amko jholere gala. So it tries so much of these things, then unfortunately one war comes and a COVID comes and it got collapsed. So we need to take care of that aspect. So if I am asked about that, I'll tell, let's have that individual introspection to see that these value systems keep developing within us. Because in one way we talk about SDG 16, peace, and in the other way we will fight each other, then probably they do not go together. Thank you.
Yeah, yesterday I heard for the first time Rebecca saying that there is something called inner development goals. Yeah, IDGs. Yeah, we still have to explore what that is and how we can link it with our performance.
Okay, anybody else wants to answer on whether we, I think that is, yeah, but we are really running out of time. You can ask during the break. So we will end here. I think pretty much a lot of summarization has already been done. And I don't want to take more time. Thank you very much, all the panelists. Thank you very much for coming, sharing your views and sharing your ideas, and also to the audience for asking questions. And we could manage to have a short discussion, question answer session. So now we would like to, yes.
Would request Honorable VC Ma'am to present a sapling to today's guest, Dr. Shashank Grahacharya. I would request our student volunteer to help VC Ma'am. Thank you. Thank you all the panel members. Thank you. We are ending the panel discussion here. Now we will move towards the session, technical session, which is arranged in the boardroom, which is in the first floor. And we have panel session again in room number 5 as well at the same time. So all the paper presenters.
Yeah. So we will be in, it's two parallel sessions. I mean 2 sessions run parallelly. One will be a floor above. That's the boardroom. And there's another room, room number 5, just adjacent to this. Yeah, that's where the other session will be held. But now, regarding the time, we are at what time is now? 12:45. So I don't think we are going to end. We'll try to end it by 1:30 is not possible. What is possible? I would have.
I think it is planned for 1 hour.
Planned for 1 hour. Let's say 1:45 to. So we will have a shorter lunch break. Yeah, and in case you run, you overshoot, then the lunch break becomes shorter. So if you want to have a nice lunch break, so we should try and finish in 1 hour, complete our business in 1 hour. Yeah, I really don't feel very bad doing this, but that's my role, right? So thank you very much, and let's move on.
Yeah. All the paper presenters are requested to go to the respective room allotted for their presentation. Thank you all.